Raising our children to be lifelong learners sounds so cliche. Strong leaders and successful adults all have one thing in common. They never stop learning. Learning is only an adventure away. Hi, my name is Tina Von Hatten, a homeschool mom and blogger with 8 children between the ages of 1 and 20. Ever since I became a mom, I knew that I wanted to raise my kids to love learning. My oldest child spent part of first grade in a German elementary school, and it didn't take long for my eager little learner to come home and tell me that he hated school. So when we moved to Canada at the end of that year, I knew that we had to try homeschooling. And it's a decision that we've never regretted. Before I go on, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day, for spending some time here at the Life Skills Leadership Summit, because we're all here committed to helping you raise the next generation of leaders. This particular session is about raising lifelong learners, and raising lifelong learners is often listed as a reason why people homeschool in the first place. I think it's because we realize that learning is crucial to success and leading a fulfilled life. It's a mindset, it's hopeful, it's insightful, and it's essential in many different career choices as well as entrepreneurship and business ownership. Your child might only be 6 or 10 years old right now, but one day your child's going to grow up, and when your children are young, we often focus on the academics and the success they have in those subjects. Is my child reading at grade level, or will my child ever be able to get fractions or learn algebra? Heck, my child won't even sit still. And we get worried. How can I raise a lifelong learner if I can't even get my child to learn his times tables, the spelling words, etc.? Those are great questions. I have one of those children who doesn't fit the mold. He wouldn't sit still. He wouldn't just do school like his older siblings. His curiosity and creativity often caused me to just want to scream, cry, or hide out in the bathroom. It forced me to reevaluate how I taught and what I believed to be good and true. Because raising lifelong learners isn't about getting your child to be an all-A student or getting into the best post-secondary schools, although that can be important. But there isn't a one-size-fits-all formula to raising lifelong learners. Each child is very individual, and each child likes different things, learns slightly differently, and challenges us as parents to meet them where they're at. And that's the beauty of this lifestyle. We have the power and the ability to meet each child where they are and to help them grow. And today I'm going to share with you some of the tools that you can use to encourage a learning mindset in your home. And it begins with us parents. So what I'm going to share with you today can be adapted to suit any learning style, any educational philosophy, any child's learning ability, as well as any parent's teaching style. The first thing I want to touch on is to take care of yourself. Your kids will be fine if you do something good for yourself every day. It's easy to get busy and get caught up in doing everything for everyone else and taking care of them and forgetting to take care of ourselves. It's something that even, I am guilty of. There's no excuses though. We have to try to spend some time every day doing something that we enjoy. Do something for yourself, and then you'll see how it affects the rest of the family. Lifelong learning is about personal development. So think about some of the things you would like to learn. Some homeschool moms have even their own morning basket that's just for them, with materials that are for self-improvement, their devotional reading, personal reading, maybe even things like journaling, bullet journaling, hand lettering, watercolor, knitting, maybe even learning a new language or memorizing a poem. The list is endless. And you could also include listening to podcasts or motivational talks, that kind of thing. And this taking your time for yourself, it doesn't have to be in a morning basket. It can be in the afternoon, spending time doing something that you love. I've got notes here, sorry. I don't want to forget anything. So if you see me looking at my notes, that's why. So maybe you already do this. Maybe you already take time for yourself, and that's awesome and everything. But for those of you who don't, I urge you to give it a try. When I read more in front of my children, like I read, usually before I go to bed, and they don't see me reading, but when I read in front of my children, they start actually reading more. They're like, oh, what are you reading, Mom? And then they'll go get their book and they'll sit beside me. When I was learning how to spin wool, I took a class on a Saturday afternoon. Then all of a sudden, all my kids wanted to see, because I had to practice for the next class. And so they would want to sit down with me and they wanted to learn as well. I wanted to enter some quilts into an exhibit, and all of a sudden I was helping 3 or 4 of my kids make quilts to enter into the same exhibit. And when I garden, I usually have a couple kids who come out and beg to have their own plot or do their own thing in the garden and grow their own things, and they take care of them. And when I bought some chickens, a couple of my kids wanted some of those too. And if I want to spend some time just playing a video game on my phone, my kids want to play too. You kind of see a pattern, right? What you do matters sometimes more than what you say. When you treat yourself with respect and take time to spend learning something new, or if you pursue hobbies, your kids are going to want to learn alongside you. Even if they don't want to learn the same thing, they'll see, oh, Mom's interesting. What can I do? Because learning is contagious. Not only that, they will see that you don't stop learning after you graduate. And it's okay to let them see you struggle. Learning sometimes can be difficult, and it takes perseverance and grit as well, and not to give up, right? So it takes practice, it takes motivation, and these are all character traits worth modeling and sharing with our children. The second thing is to encourage curiosity. Lifelong learners are curious. Encourage your child to ask questions. I know this can be really annoying, but try to encourage them to do this and help them to test their theories and find the answers. Sometimes when you're teaching a certain subject, a question arises that isn't easily or quickly answerable. It requires further research. It isn't always possible, but when it is, try to allow time for further research. In homeschool circles, we sometimes call those rabbit trails. And when you stop where you are, what you're learning, to learn something more about something that caught your eye along the way. So I found that some of our best and most memorable learning experiences has happened when we got off the script and then journeyed down one of these rabbit trails. The next thing is to teach resourcefulness. Okay, so this is kind of, piggybacking on the curiosity. So they're curious, they want to learn something more, but you don't always want to be the one doing all the research or doing all the experimenting or have to be there all the time. So teach them to be resourceful. Knowing where to find information is an important skill. There's no way that we can teach our children everything they will ever need to know. There's just no way to do that. There's none. So we can just do our best to equip them with the tools that they're going to need. We can teach them how to read a map, look up words in a dictionary, or how to research a particular subject. It's also a great time to teach children how to make do and mend, how to come up with solutions to problems that don't involve buying something. That's a great way to be resourceful. Allow children to connect with experts, or to watch a DVD that will help them to learn more about a subject. So speaking with someone who works at the zoo can teach a child more about a specific animal and then maybe even a book can, because they'll have worked one-on-one and it's more personal. And if a child develops an interest in something, you can help them find resources to answer some of those burning questions. Sometimes you can just put something on hold at the library. When it's there, they can dig into it themselves. It's also very useful to teach children how to take notes and how to use different software programs to share what they've learned. I encourage my children to share what they've learned by allowing them to do presentations using PowerPoint, or letting them build models, or using design software, or even Lego. So I have one child who can't just draw a picture or write an essay about something he's learned, because he has to make it somehow come alive. He makes a 3D model or makes it in software. That's just the way he ticks. And it's not saying he won't ever write essays, but it really helps him connect with the learning. You can also introduce your child to a variety of different ways to organize their ideas, such as using mind maps, Venn diagrams, acronyms, graphs, catchy songs, and so on. You get the idea. Because these are all resources that help promote understanding, organization, and memorization. by introducing your child to various ways of organization and how to put their thoughts and ideas into a bigger picture, it's easier for them to figure out things on their own. So they won't use all of the different tools, but they will find the tools that resonate most with their personality and their learning style. So by knowing how they think and what tools they prefer, you can coach them when they get stuck or when they get too frustrated with something they're learning. You can always make a model or make it visual or make it audio. Besides building something or making a new learned concept, and you could make it into a board game, or you could show that they can show you that they're learning without giving you the 5-paragraph essay, especially when they're too little to do that. And this is especially helpful for kids who are really reluctant or have anxiety. It shows that there isn't only one way to get an answer and that it's okay to look at things in a different way. Everyone could see that an apple falls from the tree, but it was Isaac Newton who looked at it differently and came up with the law of gravitation. Lifelong learners are resourceful and have an arsenal of tools to draw on. So it's a good thing to encourage kids to do, is to find lots of different ways in order that they can express what they've learned as well as show what they've learned. The next thing is to help your child acquire skills. So apart from reading and writing and math, there's so many neat and fun skills to teach your children. Cooking and baking is a skill that everyone's going to need at some point. There are even online programs for homeschoolers to learn that skill. My kids and I took a knife handling course online. It was really neat to learn alongside my children, and I actually learned a few things too. You don't need a course though to teach this, but it was free, so we decided to do it. And recently we moved out of the city to the country, and now we live on an acreage. So in the past few months, we've needed to use so many skills that we took for granted while living in the city. Our van didn't start the week before last, and so we had to troubleshoot what the possible problems were to see if it was even worth fixing. So my oldest son, he's kind of a car guy, and he's always loved reading about cars and watching car shows. And in fact, he could tell me the type of cars before he even learned the alphabet. He would ask me, he was like 2, he would ask me what the symbols meant. He's a mom. And then I would say, that was a VW, or that was a Mercedes, we lived in Germany, or that was, a Peugeot or a Renault. And so he learned what the symbols on the fronts of all the cars were. Even like long before, it was kind of like his own little alphabet. So when our van wouldn't start, my son and his dad went out and tried to figure out what was wrong with it and what was broken. Then he ordered the part that he thought it needed, and then he helped his dad repair the van. Because you see, in the city, I would have likely just called the automobile club and then had the car towed to the nearest mechanic and then had it fixed. However, being out in the country, it would have cost us quite a bit of money just to have it towed somewhere, and that was without even having looked at it by the mechanic, and then on top of that, the part, the labor, and all that. The van was fixed in the matter of a couple of hours with a part that was under $200. So having these skills is a great thing to have. So learning basic car repairs is a great skill to have. We did a bit of that in high school. My son did that in high school. And we do that with each of the kids. So they help with the oil changes and all that kind of stuff, But there are so many other skills that kids can learn that will spark their interest into learning other things. My grandmother was the one who taught me how to build a fire and how to plant potatoes. And one spring when we were visiting, my grandma took out my oldest kids to teach them how to grow potatoes. A friend of mine taught my kids how to milk a cow, how to plant onions, and those kinds of things. So, but being handy or having a green thumb isn't a requirement. I'm sure that you have people that that are skilled in a variety of different things. If not, maybe there's like a summer camp or a historical site or somewhere with live demonstrations in your area. Sometimes summer camps are a great way, and workshops are great ways to look at all the different possibilities to explore. So one of my kids wanted to learn pottery, another kid wanted to do martial arts, and I know nothing about either, but giving children the opportunity to acquire a variety of skills will not only help them have a love of learning, but it'll inevitably help them to grow into the person that they're meant to be. It'll help them gain confidence and self-knowledge. And lifelong learners often succeed so well because they know what learning style they have. So as an adult, you probably know how you learn the best. Some of us are more visual learners, some of us are more tactile, and some of us are more audio, use our hearing. So helping your child learn a variety of skills in a way that is most natural to them will help them find learning more enjoyable. The next thing I want to touch on is making mistakes. Lifelong learners are not afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are an opportunity. And I struggle with this. I'm not going to make a secret of it. I hate making a mistake or making a fool of myself. Like, who doesn't? But no one is perfect, and I'm certainly not. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. It can be difficult to look at the positive in something when you've failed, when you haven't done your best, or when you just haven't practiced enough to get good at something. So you have to remember not to listen to the negative, like the lies of the I can't, I'll never be able to, because these are lies. I remember when I was a kid, I often said, I can't do this, I can't do that. And my piano teacher drove her nuts because I said it all the time. I was reprimanded for saying it, but I was never taught what to replace it with. So as an adult, I learned to replace I can't with I can't yet, or even better, I will. Because lifelong learners have a growth mindset. They have a positive inner voice, and you know that voice that tells you to keep on trying, to not give up. Occasionally, it'll tell you you can't, and what you do with that voice is totally up to you. You can teach your child to have a positive inner voice, but it takes practice. I know for me it does anyway. And then there's the sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes the bad guy wins. Someone cheats and the referee didn't catch it. Sometimes you just didn't do your best. Maybe you tried to cut corners and you didn't do your best. You failed. What you do with that failure matters. I'm a firm believer in letting children fail sometimes. Call me mean, but I never let my kids win at a game against me. They have to earn it. I don't let them win, is what I'm saying. I don't purposely let them win. They have to earn it. They have to win fair and square. They have to learn how to play the game. They have to practice. And eventually they do beat me and they win fair and square. Because life isn't fair sometimes. Sometimes no matter how hard you try or how badly you want to do well at something, you come up short. You teach a child how to be analytical. Did the other team have a better defense, a better offense? What technique did they use to win? Or like if it's art or something, like how did the person create that art if they won the prize, for example, and look at it critically and analyze it. Encourage them to troubleshoot, for example. Why didn't the science project turn out like in the book? It was supposed to do this. Why didn't it? Why was a spelling word marked wrong? What could have been done differently in a certain situation? Because failure is opportunity, and mistakes, unfortunately, are great teachers. The last thing I want to touch upon, is to set goals. Where we live, we have to register with a homeschool organization. That organization is under the umbrella of a traditional brick and mortar school. And we register through them, obviously, but each organization has slightly different requirements with regards to our education plan, because we have to give them an education plan. So the organization we're with now is different in some ways than others. It took quite a bit of getting used to it first, because the first few years we were with a different organization that was run very much like a school. So they expected us to follow kind of the syllabus of a regular brick and mortar school. We had to stick closer to being what was taught in schools, like we had to stick to what was being taught in schools more closely, and there wasn't very much leeway. So that kind of stifled our learning because it wasn't fun because we were just checking boxes for this other school. So my hands-on learner wasn't learning, wasn't producing enough worksheets and paperwork to satisfy the outcomes. It didn't matter if he was learning or not. It only mattered if he can prove it in the way they needed or in the way they required it. So needless to say, we looked elsewhere for a different homeschool organization. We needed someone to support our child's learning style and needs and to let learning be fun again. So the first time we filled out our education plan, I was confused because they were asking me for my child's strengths and weaknesses. They were asking us to write out learning goals for the year. I hadn't even thought to make goals for my child. I thought they had to learn what all the other kids were learning, and that was a goal, or so I thought. So this form changed how we homeschooled. It changed the way I taught my children. It changed how I evaluated their learning. It was personalized for my student. The form wasn't about how my child measures up to its peers. It was about measuring up to its own, like my own child's abilities. So by looking at the abilities, the strengths and the weaknesses of my child, I could plan the year very differently. Of course, I kept in mind that a child of a certain age or grade typically learns X, Y, Z. But I could tailor their education to meet their needs. So setting learning goals kind of changed everything because if you've ever, maybe have you ever set goals for your child? Setting goals is something that I know that leaders and successful people do. And setting goals and mapping out ways to set goals is like an effective learning tool. It takes the pressure off of staying at the same pace as everyone else, which isn't even possible, by the way. You measure success by growth, not by how many pages were checked off in a day. If the goal is for your child to learn how to read beyond like Bob books, those readers, then you can map out what that might look like. It might mean playing games, practicing flashcards, or doing shared reading exercises where you read a little, then your child reads a little, until the confidence grows and the skill is learned. Lifelong learners set goals. So we sit down a few times in our homeschool and sit down and look at the goals we've made, which ones we've achieved. We looked at what worked, what didn't work. We set new goals too, we also let our child evaluate what worked for them, and we help them to set new goals. But the goals need to have a purpose and they need to have meaning. So and we also look at what would motivate them to achieve a certain goal. It doesn't have to be a material thing, but sometimes an incentive helps. We all need incentives, at times. And then I said the last point was the last point, but this I have one more point, and that's to introduce kids to new places and experiences. So you've set goals and you've tried different things, you've learned different skills, and now you want to broaden their horizons. Sometimes a change of scenery is all it takes to get a child excited about learning. Books are great, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need to be able to use all of your senses to experience learning. This doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. When my older kids were younger, we used the 5-in-a-row curriculum. And when we read the story about Ping, we had Chinese food for dinner one night. And then when we did the dancing, I can't remember the name of the book, but the Dancing Bear, we had a Russian tea party. And when we studied the Revolutionary War later on, we found recipes that would have been cooked at that time period. And so we used food as a tool to learn. And most kids love to eat. I say most because I have a few picky eaters. But in that case, we just choose a dessert or something from that culture or that part of the world. And that usually makes learning that fun. And it makes lots of great memories. Going to museums and science centers, the zoo, art galleries, and all those things are also a great way to give something learned in a book meaning. And sometimes, if you've studied a piece of art and you see it in the art gallery, and it's not like just like an 8x10 paper. It's this massive piece of art. It gives them something real and tangible to make that connection. And sometimes you can go to a concert or the opera or ballet, and it can make music more accessible, more real, more alive. And you don't even have to leave home for that. Like, so many of these events are available on YouTube or on DVD. I remember my kids, they got a real kick out of watching Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone dance in the Nutcracker, because they had only ever seen him in Home Alone. So that was kind of fun, just to, and it made it fun for them to watch a ballet. Another great way is to take kids out into nature. Let them turn rocks over, let them climb trees, let them observe nature and ask questions. Ask them questions. What did they see? What did they hear? What was their favorite thing that they saw on the walk? Make things and do things that are new. Maybe plant a garden or go to a workshop, or, to learn how to make robots, for example. The sky's the limit. Travel if that's something you enjoy. Even short day trips to national parks or wildlife preserves, the ocean, a farm, the mountains. All of these things can be really inspiring and make education and learning come alive. And don't forget to just play. It's fun, and it's important for childhood development. It also helps kids associate learning with the joy of discovery. It creates a sense of adventure, it fuels creativity, and it aids in personal growth. Learning slows aging, and it's good for the brain. It enriches our lives. I hope you're excited and ready to encourage your kids to become lifelong learners by, number 1, taking care of yourself. Number 2, encouraging curiosity. Number 3, teaching resourcefulness. Number 4, helping your child acquire skills. Number 5, let your child make mistakes. Number 6, set goals with your kids. Number 7, introduce your kids to new experiences and new places. Thank you for taking part in this workshop, and remember that lifelong learning is only an adventure away. Till next time, take care and God bless.